Hi, I'm Eric Poulin.
And I'm Robin Poulin.
We're the co-founders of Calendar Budget, and welcome to the Calendar Budget Podcast.
I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like. I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like.
How in the world do you get rid of debt?
Well, good question. First of all, how much of debt is too much debt?
Any amount is too much debt.
That's our safety, yes. But if you are stuck, that you find that you're always going to credit to be able to satisfy your everyday needs, you're likely in too much debt.
Are we doing redneck jokes?
That's what I was thinking. If your savings account is empty,
You know you're a debtor. No, I think a debtor is the person who's giving money. You know you're in debt.
if your wallet's full of credit cards instead of pictures of your family, maybe you have too much debt.
If you're only making minimum payments on your credit cards, you might be in debt. Yeah.
If your checks are bouncing, if your rent is late, if your bills are late, you might have too much debt.
Yeah. If no one wants to lend you more money, you might be in debt. We're going to get trademark infringement from this guy, this comedian. Oh boy.
Let's just not go into debt.
Yeah. Any debt is too much, but obviously we talked about good debt, bad debt on another episode. So there's some times when you need to have debt. Everybody's going to have it at some point. It's unrealistic to think otherwise. So how do you get out of debt? Because sometimes it gets out of control. Sometimes you got a lot of bad debt. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you have debt, how do you get rid of it? That's the point of the discussion for today. A recap on a stat that we shared previously. There was a study done in 2020 that said that the average American carries $92,727 in consumer debt.
Wow.
Consumer debt is covers a lot of things. It's like credit accounts, credit cards, loans, mortgages, personal loans, student loans. Any money that you owe to people for whatever reason, that's consumer debt.
That's likely more than a year's earning for most families.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Wow.
It is. And can you imagine trying to pay that off? You can't do it because you need to live. You can't just commit all your money to it. So yeah. How do you know when it's too much? We gave a few examples at the beginning there, but are there any other things, like any other things that we should watch out for?
Just can't get your budget to balance ever?
If you're using credit card for daily living expenses and you're not paying that off right away, that's another good sign there. Mm-hmm. Unless you're doing it strategically and paying it off, then it's totally cool. If you're using paycheck loans, like payday loans, pay advances, another sign that you might be
just to pay your monthly bills.
in trouble. Yeah, sometimes you just get behind and you need to get an advance on your paycheck to cover your income. Got checks bouncing, overdraft might be a sign.
Especially if it's repeat month after month after month.
Yes.
Or maybe you just avoid answering the phone for just in case.
In case the creditors are calling. Yeah. I mean, any one of those things that we just described on their own might not be a red flag, but you should be careful. If you have more than one of those things, something to be careful about and just be wary about.
I think you have to be aware of your spending cycles in order to know what's going on with your debt. If you are in a debt cycle, your budget can help you see that.
What do you mean by debt cycle?
That you're living paycheck to paycheck and living off of credit. Your budget can help you see that if that's what you really are doing. Your budget can see where most of the money's coming from and how to break that cycle to be able to pay things off in a faster manner.
Yeah,
avoid debt.
If you're falling into these categories that we just discussed, probably time to revisit your budget and make sure that you're overcoming these issues. And that's part of what we're going to talk about today is how to go about getting out of debt. Mm-hmm. as much as we can do on a podcast without sitting down with an individual and going through their specifics, and then setting up an individualized plan based on where you live, this is just kind of general advice on what to do to get out of debt. So, there's something called a debt-to-income ratio, which, when we're talking about how do I know if I have too much debt, this is what lenders actually use to figure out if you have too much debt. And then they don't want to lend you any more money because you're not going to be able to pay it back.
Not a safe bet.
Lenders want to get their money back with interest, of course. And if you don't have this debt-to-income ratio, DTI, debt-to-income ratio, within a norm that the industry sets, then you're a risk for them and they won't touch you. So debt to income ratio, you remember what these are. There's like a front end and a back end.
Yes.
For debt to income ratio. What do you remember what the front end is for?
No, I don't, but it just...
Okay. Front end for DTI, so debt to income ratio, comes in these two parts, the front end and the back end. And they typically are represented paired together. So you're going to see a number like your front end would be something like 24 or 28, and your back end would be something like 36. So you'd see a DTI score like 28/36. You're going to see the front end and the back end paired together. That's your DTI.
Okay.
The front end is describing, well, first of all, the whole score is meant to describe how much of your income is going to service paying off debts.
Right.
So the front end part, that first part of the number, is what percent of your income is used to pay for your housing needs. So if you're a renter, it's rent. If you're a homeowner, it's going to be your mortgage and everything. There's an acronym, PITI, that talks about what that all uncovers. That's principal, interest, taxes, and something else. Interest, I wrote down interest twice. Clearly that was a mistake. But one of those I's is meaning something else. And the point is, it's everything that you owe as a part of your home. That's going to be your monthly bills related to your housing. Mm-hmm. When you rent, typically your monthly bills are just rent. Maybe you have to pay heating and whatever else.
Yeah, your utilities.
Yeah. So that first number in the DTI, debt to income ratio, front end part, is what percent of your income goes to your housing needs. Then the back end number, the second number, is similar. It's what percent of your income goes to everything that you owe, including the first part.
Okay.
So your housing, but now all of your recurring debt. This could be your
student loans.
Well,
credit
yeah, it could be
cards.
your student loans, your credit cards, your cell phone, anything that is just a recurring debt. And then you put those two together, and the lenders, like a credit card or a bank, they want to see that you have those numbers within a range. And the general guideline is, if you want to be in a good spot, you want to be at 2836, or no higher than 2836.
Less than.
Yeah, less than that, if possible. That means that you're making enough money to cover your debt and some.
So then if I'm at 0, that's a no-brainer for the lender.
Well, you can't be at 0, because then that would mean you have no
Nothing.
debt whatsoever. Are you alive? If you're in North America, you probably have debt.
So would they probably not consider you then if you were in that situation, because they have no experience, you have no track record then?
Well, I mean, keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to have a loan, but
Phone bill.
you have income and you are living somewhere. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have the first part of the DTI.
Okay.
And then the second part you have, because you have the first part, you have the second part automatically.
Right.
But there's other stuff on top of that, like you're telling me you don't have a cell phone, sir? You're telling me that you don't have this and that? It's just, people have these things. So everybody can create this score. There's no 0. Everybody is alive, making some kind of income and has some kind of
Okay.
some kind of things that they owe. Yeah, so you want to be within that range. And in most cases, at least what I've heard, is if you have a DTI that's greater than like 43%, they're not going to touch you. If you're higher than that general guideline, then you're a risk to them. And if you're higher than 43, they're not going to touch you.
Okay.
So you can figure this out on your own just by doing the math on your income versus your housing expenses and your regular recurring income or recurring debts. Mm-hmm. But if you find yourself pushing the 2836 numbers, then maybe it's a good idea to revisit your budget. Revisit, can you increase your income? Can you reduce those expenses or debts somehow? And that's the whole point of the podcast today, is how do I reduce that debt? Mm-hmm. So we know what lenders are looking for in terms of, do I have too much debt? We know what we can look for internally, but how do we, let's get down to brass taxes here, but how do we actually get rid of debt?
Of course, what we recommend is don't incur debt in the first place if you can help it.
And because you probably have some, if it's almost at a point now where if you're alive, you are going to have some debt, just realistically. Not always the case.
But it's probably
for a long time, we didn't have any debt at all.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. Living life without any debt, let me tell you, feels
freedom. So
free. And even if you don't have savings, which we did, and you want to have savings, you don't owe a dime to anybody.
You can sleep at night.
It's a great feeling. The stress, not being present constantly. Wow, it's nice. It's really nice. Now, that's not the case anymore. We do have debts now because we've taken on other responsibilities and such. And that's fine as long as it's good debt. But again, the best kind of debt is no debt. And because you have debt, the best thing you can do at this point is commit to not growing that debt anymore. That would be the very first thing, is start with a commitment to not make it worse.
So you can take those credit cards and put them away. If that is what you need to do to break the cycle, put them away, put them in. I've heard of people freezing them in a big, huge block of ice, so it's extremely hard to get at them if you need them.
Yeah, I mean, that's advice from 20 years ago before you connected it to your phone.
It was amusing.
Yeah.
It's really funny now, but still, if there's things that you need to do to be extreme to help break your cycle,
sometimes
it's worth the choice.
You need to do that. Like, there's people going to Debtors Anonymous that are like addicted to spending.
Yes.
And this is a real condition.
Yeah.
You need to take extreme measures sometimes. Same as an alcoholic needs to take extreme measures to not get back on, to not fall off the bandwagon, as it were.
Yeah.
But yeah, commit to not growing your debt. It's difficult to live without a credit card these days because so much is dependent on it. A lot of the automation that we enjoy is all dependent on that.
There's other organizations that can help, like a debt counselor or a debt coach.
Yep.
They have their methods to be able to help identify what your debt to income ratio is and to be able to identify how to break the cycle.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of what can you do as an individual, so after you make that commitment to stop adding to your debt, then what do? You've got this debt and you need to deal with it. So there's at least two different ways to go about this, and there's actually many other slight variations of it.
Starting with a debt elimination calendar.
Yes.
And then applying the two principles I bet you're about to talk about.
Yes.
The avalanche method, debt avalanche method, and the debt snowball method.
Exactly. So both of these plans, the debt snowball and the debt avalanche, are ways to start paying down those debts in a way that eventually eliminates them. Mm-hmm. That's the goal, is to get rid of them. What is the difference between a debt snowball, a debt avalanche? Why is winter involved in all of this? What's going on here?
Bring on the snow. Well, a debt snowball and debt avalanche, for both cases, you gather all your debts together and you find out what the minimum payments are for each of them.
And the amount owing.
The amount owing, for sure. And you make sure that you're paying on a minimum on each of the debts. And then in the debt snowball case, what you do is you take the debt with the smallest amount owing and you pay that off first. And then once that one is paid off, that frees up extra money there that can be put towards the other debts.
Right. So you're not paying the one with the smallest monthly payment. You're paying the one that has the smallest overall balance of your debt. So
Yes.
if you have a mortgage and you still have $100,000 on that, and then you have a credit card debt that's like $8,000, you're going to go after the credit card one first. You don't care what the interest rates are. It's just the smallest one. And why is that? I know Dave Ramsey is a big proponent of this method.
Actually, it makes you feel good to be able to get something off your plate.
Exactly. That's the way he describes it too. The feeling of having that weight lifted off of your chest, off your plate, off your soul, as probably Dave Ramsey would say, is so worth it. So paying off that smallest one first gives you an easy win. And you can probably take care of that in fairly short order, like in half a year or a year, if, worst case scenario. You get that off. So you're doing just the minimum payments on everything else, and then all of your extra income that you have, you're going to put towards paying off that smallest one first until it is cleared out. And then all the money that you were paying on the smallest one goes on to the next smallest one.
Exactly.
And so forth until they're all gone. It's just so easy.
Sounds like it.
It's so simple. Yeah. Try doing it. Then that's where it gets hard. So what's Avalanche? Avalanche is different, clearly?
Avalanche is quite similar. You do the same method except for the smallest amount, and now you go with the one with the highest interest rate. You look at all the interest rates and you want to pay that one off first, because in the long run that will save you a lot of money by working with the Avalanche method, because you'll get your debt paid off faster for that one,
Yeah.
and which will be decreased, and then for the interest that would be incurred over time.
Yeah, you don't have that soul freeing experience that you have with the debt snowball by getting rid of the small one quickly. You could have a bunch of small ones just persisting for a long time while you work on a bigger one that might have a higher interest rate. But as you said, it will, in the long run, save you more money. Mathematically,
Keep more money in your pocket.
the Avalanche method is a better approach. But if you just want to feel better about
Emotionally.
your progress,
Yeah.
then the snowball one is very good as well. Which one do we recommend? Both. Whichever
Whatever
one
works.
works.
Yeah.
I would look at it and say, you know what, if I had a few small ones that I could just get off the plate so I don't have to spend so much worry and time tracking them, I'd rather get rid of those regardless of the interest rate and just get them off the plate, and then maybe switch to Avalanche halfway through if you have several debts that you're trying to pay off. So that's a good way to do it. And the way we recommend to do it is put it on a calendar, write down the balance for each of these debts that you have, and just track what the balance is that's remaining over time. So on April, you have, loan A, loan B, loan C. And then you're making the most payments you can make on loan A. And eventually it disappears and you've only got loan B and C left, and you're tracking those month by month. And you can see the progress happen.
And remember then, when you paid off loan A, take that money and put it towards the next one.
Exactly. That's the point of this, is it makes absolutely no sense to work on paying down your debt if you're just gonna get into it again. So use that money wisely. Pay off the debts. And then once they're all paid off, what do you do with the money? Incur more debt?
Savings.
Put it in savings. Now, begs the question, do I wait until my debts are paid off before I save? Where's the balance? What do you do there?
Savings is important too, because you're in that cycle because you don't have enough savings to be able to cover things when emergencies come up.
Yeah.
If you just keep using it to pay down your debt, then what's possibly going to happen is you never really mentally break out of the debt cycle. But if you have even a small bit of savings going on, you're already in the mindset that money is going to go into my savings account. And so it just becomes a little more natural then, once the debt's all paid off, that money can go towards your savings accounts.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's good to have a balance like that. Mathematically, if you're a logical thinker, you might think it makes no sense to be saving in my little 1% interest savings account.
Yeah.
When I have an 18% debt, I should be taking this money and paying down the debt. But for what you just explained, it's good to have a balance. Start a little bit in your savings. Have
Even
a
if
little
it's a
bit.
small amount.
Even if it's just an emergency savings.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to incur more debt. Get used to using your emergency savings instead of relying on debt. So yeah, I would definitely advise doing both. Also, as a part of this, not only are you moving all the money on your first debt when you pay it off to the second, any kind of windfall that you get, you should commit that to paying down the debt. If you get a tax return at the end of the year, if your uncle passes away and leaves you $10,000, or if you get a bonus at work, or whatever happens, unexpected income, it's not a big screen TV, it's not a vacation, it's debt service, and you can pay it, use it to help pay down that debt. You're basically paying yourself by paying down those debts, and it's worth it in the long run. That feeling, like I said, that feeling of being debt-free, whew.
And if you have your
It's worth
debt
it.
calendar, you'll be able to track what's happening, how long it's really going to take you, and it gives you a goal to look forward to, a finish line. So it gives you something to hope for.
Yeah.
So you're not thinking, for the rest of my life, I'm going to live in this cycle. Help break the cycle to look forward and make the plan and stick to it.
Yeah, and in just in terms of where does this extra money come from that I'm using to pay down my debt? I didn't have that money, and where is it coming from? So you may need to start by just revisiting your budget and examining the way that you're living life. If you're living outside of your means, then it's time to live in a mode of constraint for a little while, so you can get things under control.
If you don't like that end date when the debt's going to be paid off, see what you can do to free up money. Reduce your expenses. Try to eliminate eating out. You can do that for a few months at least to save some money and eat at home, make your own homemade dinners and save a lot of money that way and put that all towards your debt. Get it down faster.
And don't rule out increasing your income. Like, sometimes we say that as if it's a joke. Oh, I'll just go increase my income. I earn wages at a job. What am I supposed to do? Just walk in and demand a raise or work more hours somehow? Yeah, you can actually do those things.
Yeah.
But there's more that you can do. You can take on second jobs. You can do little this and that. You can monetize a hobby. There's lots of little things that you can do. You can sell some of your stuff that you're not using.
Trinkets.
Yeah. There's lots of things that can be done. Obviously, we're not suggesting that you fire sale all your possessions to pay off your debts. I mean, you still have to live life, of course. But anything that you can do to relieve the stress of debt, like, it's real. It's still, I think, the number one cause of marital dispute.
And even for yourself too, can be debilitating to hold on to that. Yeah. Mental stress. And
the stress affects your sleep. It affects your performance at work and within a marriage and within your own life. It's not cool.
You could find some physical ailments that are only happening because you're stressed.
Yeah.
That is a very real problem to have.
Yeah, anxiety.
Yeah.
Panic attacks.
Not knowing where the paycheck's coming from.
I'm sure there may be more than just financials that are contributing to some of those things, but that can be the drop of water that causes the tidal wave. Why have that stress there when it can be taken care of?
We have some friends that are doing that they have gone back to school because they know that there's a program available to be able to help them have a better education that would probably almost double or triple their income. Not sure how much, but it'll make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
that'll alleviate their money stresses that they just can't get out of in the state that they are now.
Yeah. Now, taking care of debt yourself, definitely the best and first thing you should try to do. It's sometimes not enough. If you've gotten yourself into a position where it's unmanageable and you can't do it yourself, then there's a few other outs. And so some of those include consolidating all of your debts into one. So that's called a consolidation loan. This makes sense if you have several different loans, debts, whatever they happen to be.
Or a few credit cards.
If they're at a fairly high interest rate, what you can do is you can get a loan at a lower interest rate for the amount that is the sum of all these. And then this loan basically pays off all these credit cards, wipes them out, and now you have just one debt to manage.
At a lower interest
At
rate.
a lower interest rate, exactly. So that means you should be able to pay it off quicker because the money you're committing towards it, it's easier to manage because there's only one. You're not going to forget, or you're less likely to forget the one credit or debt that you have as opposed to 5 or 6 or 7 or however many you have. And because it's hopefully a lower interest rate, you're able to commit more money payment against the principal, which is the balance, instead of just the monthly interest rate that's accruing all the time. So that's a great way to deal with, if you have numerous debts at high interest rate, a consolidation loan at a lower rate is a good way to go.
There's also a possibility that if you speak with a debt coach or debt counselor, they may help you go to the creditors and to get a reduction in the amount owing. Some of them are happy to receive at least part of the money and to forgive part of the loan, just to know that they will still get paid some.
Yeah, in fact, you can do some of that yourself by calling. A lot of companies will just laugh at you. But some companies will be willing to play ball. And like you said, they're better to get a portion of it than none of it.
Or even ask for a reduce in any fees or any interest earned. See what they'll do.
Yep.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
It doesn't hurt. And just as you suggested, working with a credit counselor, great way, if we're going in sequence of fix it yourself, consolidation loan, next step would be work with a credit counselor. You called it a debt coach, a credit counselor. These are
There's a
usually
few different types.
These are usually people that are government certified to be in this game. It's credit counseling. And they have a special credential that allows them to act on your behalf, to reach out to some of these creditors and try to negotiate with them on your behalf. And they can also, if it comes to it, they can help you do something called, in Canada, it's called consumer proposal. And in the United States, it's called filing for Chapter 13.
Yes.
Which I think is pay wage earner, something like that. I'm not familiar with the actual title, but the end of the day, it's the same thing, which is basically the consumer proposal wipes out your debt, and the consumer or the debtors who you owe, they get a portion of their money, and then you, as the person who is now under the consumer proposal Chapter 13, you have to pay. It's almost like a loan consolidation. You're paying to the credit counselor, through the credit counselor, and they're disseminating that money. And when you're under this consumer proposal Chapter 13, you're not allowed to incur any more debt at all. You cannot do it.
Not possible.
Yeah, you can't apply for a loan. You will not get approved because it's on your file.
Okay, so that's one repercussion from that. Are there any other repercussions from filing a Chapter 13 or this consumer proposal?
It does stay on your record for a period of time. I'm not sure what the length is. I think it's like 3 or 5 years in Canada, and not sure what it is in the United States. Might be the same amount. But it will stay on your record for a bit of time. So if you are planning to buy a home, it's probably not going to happen when you're under consumer proposal. because you're not allowed anyway to accumulate more debt. You just won't get approved for sure. And afterwards, I don't know if it stays on your file afterwards, because I think it clears off. I think it's a temporary thing, like a fix, like you're in the hospital for finances. And give you some time to heal, and then we'll send you back out into the world. Good luck, bucko. Back into the world.
We do not want you to return.
Yes, please don't come back. And so that works for a lot of cases. And then the nuclear option
The one you want to avoid at all costs.
is bankruptcy. So yeah, you don't want to declare bankruptcy because that stains your record. I don't know if it's permanently, but it definitely stains your record.
I think for a longer period.
Yeah, maybe for 7 or more years.
I think 7. And in the US, I believe that's called Chapter 17.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that. I try to. I was going to say I try to avoid that discussion because it's like if we say it's the nuclear option.
Yeah.
It's the very last option, and you should thoroughly exhaust all of these other options before even considering bankruptcy. Bankruptcy means you're basically telling people, I cannot pay my debts. I'm not even going to pay a portion of them. It's a write-off. But it means you have to sell all your assets to the bank, and they're going to have a fire sale to pay off your debtors as best as they can. Or pay themselves off first, probably. And you're going to be living in poverty for the period of your bankruptcy because you won't qualify for any loans. And it's just a very difficult process to go through. Very difficult.
Now, whatever level of debt you're at, don't give up hope because there are ways through it. You just have to be able to be willing to fight for yourself.
Yeah, and like we say, there's ways to try and work on it yourself. If it's beyond your ability, there's help available. Like there's local government agencies are there to help you. These same people that help you do consumer counseling or credit counseling, they can take you through a bankruptcy if you need to, if it comes to that. In fact, you'll have to work through them because lawyers get involved at that point. You can't do bankruptcy on your own. You have to go through these agencies that will help you.
Yes.
And again, that's the nuclear option. Try everything you can to not get there, including getting more different income, reducing your expenses. You know, if we're jumping to our recommendations now for the podcast episode, it's going to be recognize when you have too much debt, right? Commit to not adding to your debt, and any windfalls that you have should go to paying it off. Prepare yourself a plan to get out of debt, a la snowball or avalanche or whatever your winter allegory is that you want to use. And if you need to, then you can get some help because there's a lot of people in this situation. Help is available.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I do remember something though from one of our customers of Calendar Budget. They were able to use their budget to identify things that they were able to reduce. So to increase the income, like you're saying, decrease expenses, and they were able to pay their student loans off a lot faster.
Yeah.
And that was just by using their budget because they could see exactly when things needed to be paid, what could be reduced.
I remember
to
that guy.
move things around.
He was awesome.
And didn't he save like $17,000
Yeah.
by paying it off sooner?
Yep.
Like, amazing.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, we were so excited when we heard about that.
Yeah.
Like, this is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. So, I mean, taking the right steps, and he didn't use any of the agencies or anything. This was just him doing a debt elimination plan himself. Debt elimination calendar, a la Calendar Budget in this particular case, and just worked through the difficult, grueling steps of going through and paying it off one at a time. And it's very rewarding seeing this. It's like bodybuilding. Every time you go to the gym, it's work. It's a workout because it's work, and you're gonna get tired and sore.
Yes.
And you're not gonna see any progress after your first day. You're not going to see any progress after a week. Sometimes it takes several months and you start to notice that it doesn't hurt so much because you're starting to get used to it. Same with paying down your debts. It's difficult, especially at the beginning, because you've got to make some changes to make it happen. But it starts to get less painful, and then you start to see the progress. And then you start feeling amazing about it.
Yeah.
So,
And when you overcome all that, you've grown a lot. You've realized what things not to do to avoid that situation again. You've found ways that you can be able to help other people avoid it and to help them to get out of their debt as well.
for sure. So get out of debt as quickly as you can. Don't get into any more. And happy budgeting.
Happy budgeting.
I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like. I can pay cash, I can pay check, I can pay wire transfer, I can pay gift card, I can pay credit, I can pay anything you like.